ということで今回の、インタビューゲストは30年以上のポーカープロの経験がありですね、様々なポーカープレイヤーに対してコーチングもしております。そしてポーカーの本も、4冊執筆をしている、まあ僕からするとね、生ける伝説、トミー・アンジェロさんにお越しいただきました。Hi Tommy, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Shinpei.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
yeah. We've talked. Well, I guess we had an email back and forth a
Uh-huh.
little bit, and when I showed my YouTube channel, and you said it was first time seeing, you know, a poker room and explaining poker in Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was amazing because you have such a long history of poker, right? Like 30, over
Right.
30 years.
Oh,
And
yeah. Well, it's actually 50 years now that I've been playing for money. I started when I was 14.
yeah, yeah.
But but when I moved here to California, the Bay Area, I played like 80 to 90% of the opponents I faced were Asian,
Oh, okay.
but almost no Japanese. Is Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, and Filipino.
Oh, okay. Like even though
And
because poker is getting so popular last 2 or 3 years, you don't see any Japanese people around the San Francisco area?
Well, I'm talking a long time ago, though.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
just saying back then, in fact, they told me, they said, well, the Japanese culture, not as much into gambling or whatever, but you know, hey, here we are.
Yeah, and yeah, now it's getting huge. So like this is like such a like what do you say, important and such a value that you're giving to us. So like I'm going to extract as much wisdom as possible and try to share it
Okay,
to a Japanese audience. But
sounds
first,
good.
I would like to ask you like, how was your 2023?
Good. All of my years are good these days.
Uh,
Yeah, there's not that much distinction in, from one year to the other in terms of good years or bad years.
mhm.
They're all pretty much good.
I guess you
Uh,
found like a tune, right? Like you found a
Yeah, yeah,
rhythm.
yeah. Constant refinement
Hmm.
of the details of my life with the prime objective of basically reducing all stress, reducing all unhappiness.
Yep.
Ever since I sort of made that my top priority and applied myself, it's kind of amazing how much stress you can reduce over time. And so, I'm in a phase of life right now. My wife and I are kind of challenging in that we have a lot of people older than us in both of our big families that are dying and
Okay.
sick.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of our lives right now is awareness of and talking to and traveling to our different families when people die or are sick. And even with all that going on, we're both maintaining kind of a joyful heart. And
Mm.
so that's about all we can hope for.
I guess yeah, you learned how to overcome grief by going through poker, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. Because
exactly.
poker
That's
is
part
a
of what,
yeah, exactly. Poker is a little bit of grief every single hand, right? You win or
right,
lose.
right.
Yeah.
I call it pain training.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And we're lucky as poker players to have that opportunity,
yeah.
right? If we take the time to look inside ourselves and ask what happens when we tilt or
Hmm.
whatever, or get angry, can get a lot of work done on ourselves at the poker table.
Yeah, that's something I was so grateful that I met poker when I was 18, and I learned what can you control, variance,
Yeah,
and so other things factor, and also what can you not, and also the concept of EV. When you make a
right,
decision right now, does it affect like short term or long term? And it was
right.
such a powerful tool that I was able to learn from poker.
And
And
apply to regular life, you mean,
exactly,
EB, especially. How old are you?
31.
Okay. So I'm get a bearing. I know very little about you and your poker life.
Yeah, exactly. So like we're going to go back and
Yeah.
forth because
Uh-huh.
and one thing I loved about when I was listening and you said your favorite thing is play poker, write about poker, and talk about poker. And
Talk
now
about poker.
yeah,
Right, here
exactly.
we go.
Yeah, so
Sounds
like
like you too, huh?
yeah, exactly. Like I lately I'm not enjoying playing poker as much as I used
Oh,
to. So that's
uh-huh.
one of the reason, I'm trying to see like, how can I reduce pain and
Yeah,
anxiety
yeah.
in playing. But I love playing poker. And no, sorry, the
Right,
write about poker, talk about,
right.
and as I said, because the Japanese poker scene is getting much popular uh,
Yeah,
compared to when I just started, like it's 13 years ago,
right,
and so I'm
right,
trying to express and show like how fun poker can be.
right.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job, but so I'm just curious, is it mostly online? Are there live casino poker rooms in Japan?
Okay, so casino is about to open in 2020, 2030. So within 7 years or so.
Okay.
There's a city called Osaka, which is second biggest city.
Mhm.
They approved opening casino, and poker will
Okay.
be
Right.
playable. But
Right.
currently, it is illegal. So people
Right.
going to it's like a arcade kind of, like you can buy the chips, you can play
Yeah,
poker,
yeah, yeah.
but there's no monetary value. And also, but actually, because the how tournament works, so
Mhm.
let's say you buying for $100, that
Mhm.
$100 doesn't go directly to the prize pool, but prize pool is you're getting somewhere else, and in that way,
Right.
it's not
Right.
gambling. So yeah,
So they found a workaround,
yeah, yeah.
basically.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the tournament
Yeah.
is kind of getting a much big,
Right,
really
right,
big now. So
right.
yeah, that's the
And I
where we are.
imagine a lot of people are learning to play in Japan and then going in other countries where it is legal to play,
Yeah,
maybe, right?
exactly.
Going to the
So
World Series and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
so actually, Commerce in LA is one of
right.
the big destination. A lot of Japanese people go, and
Yeah.
also Las Vegas or Macau, Philippines,
Uh-huh.
all the
Right,
place. And
right.
because of the YouTube, a lot of YouTubers, poker YouTubers, they go
Sure.
around, they go abroad, show their hands and stuff, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
actually helping moving towards to the being popular in
Right,
Japan too. Yeah,
right.
so
Awesome. And
yeah.
you're on the front edge.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
Cool.
what I'm trying to do. Because I
Mhm.
used to work for pokerstrategy.com, and back in the day, that's what I was doing. Because back in the day, it was dead. It's like desert. Like nobody's
Right,
playing poker. So back in
right.
the day, if I say, "Do you know anything about poker?" People would always do, "Oh, poker is that this?" They
Yeah, yeah,
always
yeah.
thought about 5 card draw.
Right, right.
Yeah, but now it's Texas
Wow.
Hold'em. So yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
cool.
yeah. So, yeah, 2023. Did you go to World Series?
No, I used to go every year,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2009, I didn't go the first year of COVID.
Yep.
And as it turns out, I haven't gone back there since. So I haven't because I don't play any tournaments.
Yep.
I've been going to the World Series since '87,
Yep.
but I've never played an event. A lot of reasons for that. But because I just kind of got away from playing for a few years with COVID, right?
Yep. Yep.
As it happens, about 2 years ago, the poker room that's closest to me, I'm pointing because it's like I can see it from my house,
Oh yeah.
started a 5-10 game. It used to be 2-5. They started doing a winner straddle. So it's 2-5-10, which is kind of like the minimum stakes I play. And it's super loose. It's California. So I started playing down there. And because I was sort of in between writing projects. So a couple of years ago, I started playing regularly again. So I'll play for a couple months, maybe 20 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
then not play for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been fun. So I've been to Vegas since then to play, not during the World Series, but I go down there for a week and play at Aria and Bellagio. I
Oh
did
yeah.
that just a couple weeks ago, and I'm going back in a couple weeks.
Ah,
And I
nice.
go down and I visit friends and play poker, and it's like my own little poker junket.
That's,
The answer to
that's
your
good.
question is no, I didn't go to the World Series, and I probably won't go to the World Series anymore. I just enjoy the off time now more.
I
You
see.
know, when I
E-
was more into the media and just writing books and more visible, I had a lot of reasons to go to the World Series
Yeah.
besides just play poker, but not so much now.
Maybe you're too busy. Like if you go there and everyone's like, "Ah, hey Tommy," right?
Well, that doesn't happen.
Oh really?
I am so incognito.
Oh okay.
I go down to play at Oaks and like maybe, 5 guys out of 300 even have any idea who I am. No,
Uh,
there's not that many pictures of me out there. I did start doing videos,
yep.
5 years ago,
Yep.
but before that, there were very few pictures of me out there. And when I go to Vegas, I'll get outed now and then. I'll be playing at Aria. And it's kind of funny what happens is because they know I'm kind of in the mum poker and
Yep.
privacy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so they'll like wait till I'm in between hands, like come up behind me very quietly. Hey, I really like your book, Elements of Poker. I wanted to say hi. Like, but that's about it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think your name, Tommy Angelo, is more front than your
Oh, yeah,
actual
yeah.
like face. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. In fact, that did happen, and it's kind of funny. The last time I was there, I bring out my player card,
Yep.
you know, because they swipe it, right? And I just toss it on the table. And the guy next to me looks at it, he's like, "You're Tommy Angelo?" Like that, you know, about half the table did light up.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So now
And
I'm just gonna turn in my card face down.
yeah, you really like, because do you feel that the player is going to react differently knowing who you are?
Maybe, I don't know. You mean in terms of the betting strategy?
Yeah, or like how
Oh,
they,
maybe.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know. Or maybe they'll give me extra fear or respect. I don't know. I
Okay.
really don't know.
You
But
never
it does
tried.
make me uncomfortable for what it's worth
Okay, okay,
when I
because
get outed. I'd rather just it not come up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because they know who you are, and you think that they know, like, there's some
No,
little
no,
mind game
that's
stuff.
not the reason. I just don't like drawing attention to myself like that.
Okay,
I,
okay,
you know, it's just I'm really, you know, kind of an introvert, believe it or not.
okay, okay. Me too, kind of, actually, like, because I can't talk, and I have no issue talking to people, but I try to, not get into the conversation, so I can relate
Right,
to that.
right,
Yeah, yeah, because
right.
leave me alone, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, a little bit of that.
yeah.
I got another cat here about to hop up here. Yeah, okay,
Wow. So,
go ahead.
as you said, you have, around 50 years, more than 50 years of playing poker experience. And I like to, know, I mean, I kind of know, but like, to your audience, could you explain like
Mhm.
how you, I guess, met poker like the first time
Yeah,
when you're 7 years old?
14, well, yeah, 7 is I
Yes.
started playing with my brothers, no money. I started playing for money when I was 14, just with, high school buddies, pennies and nickels.
Hmm.
And then, fell in love with it. I mean, immediately. And then when I was about 20, somewhere around there, my mom gave me this article in New Yorker magazine. It's a very famous article where they interviewed Doyle Brunson and all those guys. And that was the first time I'd ever heard the phrase professional poker player,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And I was like, wow, I want to do that. That's what I want to be. Now, at the time, I had a beautiful career in music going.
Yep.
And I thought, well, when I get too old to rock and roll, maybe when I'm 50 or 60, I'll settle down and become a professional poker player. That was what I was thinking when I was like 20. But then when I turned 30, I kind of accelerated the whole thing, left the music business, went full-time pro, playing in dumpy little home games in basements in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio.
Hmm.
But the stakes were high enough and the games were ran enough that I could make a living,
Okay.
and did that for 7 years. Then moved to California to play poker, where I was playing much higher stakes, 24-hour access to all the beautiful legal poker rooms in California.
Hmm.
That was in 97.
Hmm.
But the answer to what people ask is like, how did you choose poker as a career? And my
Yeah.
standard answer is it chose me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I had no say in the matter. I was so addicted to playing and so fanatical about it, like so many of us have been, that the only way I could satisfy my need to play poker all the time was to make a living at it. There was
Mm.
there was like kind of no choice. So I knew that it was possible to make a living at it because I heard those words,
Yep.
professional poker player. I knew they existed. And so I was like, I got to do that, you know?
Because you had the I think 4 years of playing drums and 4 years of playing piano or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, in the
Yeah.
music career.
Right.
And when you try to switch to professional poker player when you're 32, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you change the career? Did you just overnight or slowly,
Yeah.
or yeah,
No,
overnight?
literally overnight.
Oh
I
yeah.
told the guys in the band like 6 months in advance, because we're gonna have to replace me. This was like a major band,
Uh-huh.
right? And gave them a big advance warning, that I'm quitting basically as soon as we get a replacement for me.
Yep.
And at the time, I was dating a woman named Tammy, and so I left within about a 2-month period. I left the band, and she had a daughter, so I left the band, got married, and bought a house. So I bought a house with no job, no safety net. She worked like a regular minimum wage type of job. And so it was, I use the phrase jumping off the cliff when I teach people about
Yep.
becoming pro, right?
Yep.
And I really did jump off the
Yeah, you
cliff.
did. Yeah.
I nosedive. Yeah.
Wow. So you basically bet all in. your life, everything. You
Yeah,
bet. Yeah.
I did. I
Uh,
did. My
uh,
backup plans were thin, you know. I mean, I couldn't go back to music,
yeah.
basically. I knew I could get a job dealing poker
Yeah.
if it came to it. And I did do some dealing on and off, you know. But but the other thing is though, by then 87 is when Sklansky and Monmouth came out with Hold'em for advanced players, which changed the whole world and
Yeah.
taught us that we could, treat it like a job.
Yeah.
Right. So I had been playing in this circuit of games part-time and working on my professional attitude for 3 years before I jumped off the cliff. At that time, I knew these games were profitable
Mm.
if I could keep the tilt down, literally.
Oh yeah.
I knew that right from the beginning. If I played consistently by the book, literally, I would make the money promised to me by the book.
Wow.
So I felt secure, right? In that if I perform well, I knew I would be okay.
Because you already found Holy Bible, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was that simple to beat the games back then. In that whole pool that I played in for 7 years, there were only 2 other guys that had ever even been to Vegas to play poker and saw what real poker looked like.
Mhm.
Everybody there was a total superfish and always would be,
Mm.
right? Like you can't even imagine. So, and it was limit games, limit Hold'em,
Yep.
limit Omaha high-low. And so if you had the patience to wait for good starters and you had any normal gaming sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was good at that, very good at that, gonna beat the games. That's all,
Because you limit Hold'em, and the betting strategy is so limited, right? It's not
Mhm.
not much of I guess creativity. So like more
Yeah,
patient. Find the right time. Bread and butter
yeah,
situation, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. And then 2001, right? And at that time, No Limit Hold'em just exploded.
Yeah.
And at the time, like based on your book, and there's only 3 tables in the United States was
Yeah.
playing No Limit Hold'em.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess you were the one of the lucky one that are playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's such a fluke. Even though Doyle wrote his book in the 90s and people were reading that and everybody loved it, nobody was spreading No Limit Hold'em. There were some places that maybe had pot limit Hold'em, but it was very rare. The only place that was spreading it was the Bay Area, right here, California. By that, I mean not Commerce. This was San Francisco and Oakland in this area. And there were a few places that spread it. And so every night of the week, there would be a game somewhere, but like 3 different casinos,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was from 91 all the way till No Limit got big online in 2001, but it didn't really make it into the casinos in bulk until 03, 04. It took a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So from basically 91 to 2003, they were playing No Limit here in the Bay Area every day into their own weird 3-blind structure. So I moved here in 97. So I was playing in these No Limit games basically 5 or 6 years ahead of the curve and being trained by 4 or 5 grinders who had been beating these games since 91.
Wow.
Literally a handful of guys.
Wow.
Right. That's who I was playing with every day. I watched them walk away with the money every day. And I was like, I literally just started copying what they do. That was the beginning of my No Limit training.
But based on my understanding that the World Series main event was always No Limit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So people,
it's a fluke.
yeah, yes. So people knew that what's No Limit like, and people maybe
Right.
thought it's like game of the poker, Cadillac of poker, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think back in the day, $10,000 is like high stakes.
Oh,
Yeah, high roller.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, but that's the thing. It's like, even though they were No Limit tournaments and they got a lot of kind of like they were glorified.
Yeah.
People still didn't play No Limit in bulk enough to go into the casino. Because if you go into the casino, if we go in there with 20 guys and we say, hey, we want to play such and such, somebody will do it for us.
yeah.
20 new bodies, right? And so there wasn't enough critical mass
Mm-hmm.
of people to get the casinos to start spreading No Limit until longer than you would think.
Yeah, cool.
Right.
And
Here's another fun little historical thing a lot of people don't realize. The whole idea of a cap buy-in,
Yep.
okay, that never existed in any poker game in the world ever until No Limit was played online. The only way they could play No Limit online was with a cap buy-in. Think about it. Otherwise, everybody could put their entire account on the table all the time. So the inspiration that made No Limit Hold'em possible online was the cap buy-in. So now, when the people started going to the casinos to play poker, where did they come from? Online, all of them.
Yeah.
The new No Limit players, the only way they had ever played with the cap buy-in. So they started playing with a cap buy-in at casinos. It was the freakish. Nobody would have ever imagined that in a million years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It would be funny, right? Like if you deposit money and the entire money is put it on the table and online. That would be crazy.
But
Yeah.
they wouldn't let you do that.
Yeah.
Right. They couldn't let you do that, you know. So yeah, it's just another, there's so many things about you know, like one of the things you said we might talk about is the you know, the solver era.
Yes.
What I was just talking about the way, the fluky way that all of a sudden we had cap buy-ins because of this sequence of events. I've been doing this long enough. I see all of poker that way now. Right now, to you, it seems like the solver revolution is like, wow, this is a big deal, and it is,
Yes.
right? But it's just one more of those. You know, these things happen all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, the pendulum swings. It's like solvers comes in, and now players who don't even know why are playing with improved bet sizing. Down at Oaks, people have never read a book, don't know what a solver is, barely speak English, because they've been playing against the people who are using the solver bet sizing. So now they're doing smaller bets, which are better in certain situations that we've learned. And they have no idea why it's correct, but they're doing it. And now the pendulum will swing the other way. People are coming up with natural defenses to these smaller bets, like more aggressive raising, more aggressive check raising. Okay. The strategies come in, counter strategies come in. There's huge splashes of advancement. There's periods of stasis, but poker has never stopped changing at this rate. That's the point I want to make. Go back to 1880, right? It has always been changing at a rapid rate. I mean, tournaments didn't exist till 50 years ago, 60 years ago, right?
Wow.
So my point is, I see the whole solvers thing as kind of like just part of the continuum.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not that big a deal.
Because for a long term poker player like you, like internet poker was like big deal too, right? Like you can play from your house.
Kidding me?
Yeah. So yeah, and also the how you said the continuous, you know, poker is like always evolving. And when I kind of explain to someone who doesn't understand poker, is like poker is like martial arts. You know, you never perfect thing. You know, you can get to a certain point, but it's always different. I don't know if
that analogy.
I don't know if you watch UFC, but if you look back when UFC it's a big organization of mixed martial arts, and when it started about 30 years ago, it was completely different than if you see right now. So it's interesting.
And you know, one of the three pillars of Buddhism by some methods of teaching it is impermanence. Just accepting that everything is changing all the time. This is the way it is, right? That's when I'm coaching somebody and let's say they're playing in a certain place in Florida and they're like, okay, I'm making this much an hour. If I do this for, 4 more years, I'll have enough to do this. I'm like, dude, your poker situation is going to change 6 times in the next 4 years. Don't count on anything except your ability to play good, today.
Yeah.
That's it. Right.
I don't know this term, but in Japanese and also the English word, there's a thing called kaizen, 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 which means continuous improvement.
Yeah. I was just going to mention that very thing.
Yeah. So like small incremental, continuous. Yeah. And that's something that
there's a very famous Japanese sushi chef. I saw him on a documentary. I don't remember the name, but he's like one of the top guys, really old. And his restaurant only has like 6 stools or 8 stools. Come here, kitty. And he says, they're like, what drives you? He goes, I wake up every day. He's considered the best in the world, right?
Yep.
Because I wake up every day and all I want to do is like, how can I make my sushi a little bit better?
Yeah.
You know, and he's dead serious. I mean, it's so inspirational when I heard that, right?
And I think that's like every poker player can, you know, like get inspired and you can apply because
Yeah,
that's it. And like there's
right,
no perfection, right?
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said, martial arts, poker, music, writing, there's always a frontier of improvement available.
Yeah.
Meditation,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's something I love about poker. It's like very artistic too. It's sure it's like mathematics, a certain well scientific you know approach to like a
Mhm.
solver, but also it's very artistic and I would say very human ish. You know, you again you're playing against humans,
Yeah,
so it's a very human
yeah,
element. I love about
right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's very spontaneous. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
exactly. And so like I guess you said the you know 2001 sure the you know No Limit Hold'em was little you know I guess noticed, but would you say the money maker made it like you know
Oh,
just
yeah.
exploded? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was the three things happened at the same time. Moneymaker won the World Series starting with a $40 satellite.
Yeah.
Okay. They put the whole card cameras in the table, and poker went from being nobody, even the poker players didn't watch the stuff, before the whole card camera. It was so boring,
Yeah.
right? But that made it so that anybody in the world could start watching poker and be involved. It made it a reality TV show. And at the same time, the money movers figured out how to make it so that somebody could enter a credit card and within minutes be playing live poker for real money. That
Oh.
also happened in 2003-ish, when it became way easier to populate your account with money.
Oh.
Okay. So the whole card camera, the instant funding, and money and the money maker effect together is what caused the boom.
So I guess the first couple months was just the carnival, right? Like when you go to casino, everyone wants to play the No Limit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it was quite a time.
Yeah.
And then right then was when Card Runners, which was the first training site,
Yep.
got going, like '06, and then Deuces Crack, which I was heavily involved in, started in '07 and '08. You talk about another transformational phase of poker. It used to be everybody started out as a degenerate and everybody started out playing about 100% of the hands.
Yep.
I mean, that was just the way you learn, right? Now you had a bunch of young, sharp guys like you coming up and they're learning about folding 75% of the hands before the flop
Yeah.
on day one, at these training sites,
Yeah.
right? That never happened before. So that was another thing that just rocked the world. And here's another little long range observation. Okay. So, generally speaking, when a new player pool opens up, it starts out loose and gradually gets tougher. Okay. My first direct example of that was the Trump Taj Mahal opened in Atlantic City in '91, and they had the first big poker room on the East Coast, which
Mm-hmm.
was closer to me. I was in Columbus. So it was like a 10-hour drive. So I was going out there to play poker. Guys were coming all the way from LA. Pros were coming everywhere to this feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
Because you had all these rich East Coast guys that had never played poker, all playing poker at Atlantic City. 3 years later, the games were still good, but not nearly as good, right? Because the bad players either get better or quit.
Yep.
Gradually over time. The same thing is happening on a larger scale from the money maker boom, right? So you got '04 to '07, tons of people come in. '07, '08, '09, '10, the nosebleed games go crazy.
Yep.
The pros are making ridiculous money. It looks like this is going to go on forever. Now, granted, Black Friday happened, but even if it hadn't, there's no doubt that the comp between the training, the bots, everything else, poker keeps getting harder and harder. So that was one gigantic player pool creation. And now ever since then, it's been getting gradually harder.
Yeah. Okay, again, like going back to like basketball or soccer, like any sports, it's getting tougher and tougher because of all the knowledge, like someone like you, who learned everything and giving back to the community or like next generation. Next generation already has the idea that you had to go through and figure out by yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So, we need to start breeding more big fish.
yeah, exactly. Or like us, some country or big area that never
Oh,
discovered
yeah,
poker.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I
Right.
think that's the one big thing. Let's say India. India is try to regulate online poker, and they had a little bit of tax issue. So I don't see it will go like skyrocket, because it used to be if you win money right away when you withdraw, they take 30%. But I think they install
Yeah.
another law that as soon as you deposit, they take 30% out of your deposit.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
so like, how are you going to play, right? So something like that, or even Germany, they just put the heavy tax law.
Well, this sounds more like government-run gambling where it's all about a super high rake.
Yep.
And nobody can beat that game, right? I
Nope.
mean,
Nope.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
that's like a lottery type of setup where the people going in are basically, they probably realize they're taking ridiculously long odds, right?
mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
they got to give up 30%.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's still spreading my point is that's no good for the pros.
Yep. Yeah. 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 I think you're in the front runner, right? You already had the juicy time. You took
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
you
yeah.
sucked out everything, and then
I cashed
goodbye.
in.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, you're going back, and then next is the current era solver. I I would like to connect this to the lovely your term that you created, Kazican, right?
Okay.
Kuzzzycan,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing a lot of things in the well, especially Japanese poker uh, community, that because a lot of people who started playing poker, Japanese players, they already
Mhm,
know what solver is. They already know what GTO strategy is. So they're,
mhm.
I think, trying to make the play that solver approve. Like
Right.
what's the correct play.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the end, again, like a pendulum swing, it's you can do whatever you want, right? Even
Right,
this
right,
modern era. Yeah,
right. Well, the idea, I mean, just to explain, because he can was just a goofy word I made up
yeah, yeah.
in Elements of Poker. I got to the end of the first section, which is universal elements, and it was kind of heavy and heady. And I really wanted to remind the reader that it's a game that you can do whatever you want,
Yeah,
at any time, just like you said.
yeah.
And it's really important to keep that in mind, especially if somebody's way deep into the whole solver and thinking, okay, part of the mistake people make is thinking that there is a correct answer, that there is a knowable correct answer. And very oftentimes there isn't. There just isn't.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
so fragile, right? Like solver solution is such a fragile thing. Like if you change a little bit of range, and it's completely different.
right. And you're supposed to be adapting to the game circumstances anyway.
Yeah,
So, but the spirit of Cuz He Can is more about um maintaining an artistic sense of improvisation
yep,
and flow, and just like, you don't owe anybody any explanation about anything you do. It's kind of like has shamelessness built in, be your own person. That's kind of the spirit of that.
yeah. And I think in the book you also mentioned that you're the only one playing that hand particularly, right? Even if
Yeah.
other people can see your whole cards, you don't know what's right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 So like a
And
first,
letting go of all that part of the reason to do everything we just said is is each of those things are like little anxiety causing thoughts.
yeah,
And as soon as we're free of all that, then we're free to just perform at our best.
yeah, exactly. The I think main issue that I do have that mental issue, that the fear of judgment, right? If I
Yeah,
make this, maybe people
yeah,
see I'm like I don't know anything, but
right,
like you know who cares, right? It's a card
right,
game.
right,
Yeah,
right. One of my favorite examples of that is like, let's say that you make a really off color raise under the gun with like 6-7 suited or something, right? And you get lucky and flop a straight.
yeah,
Okay. And so, but everybody puts you on like an overpair. Okay, so when the flush comes on the river and you pay the guy off, or some card comes on the river, the guy bets and you pay him off, people just assume that you were a total donk and you blew your whole stack with one pair.
Yeah.
They have no idea that you had the amazing hidden nuts the whole way. Pure shamelessness is when you can muck that hand face down and not feel that your sense of pride has to let them know, hey, I didn't play it nearly as bad as you think I did.
Yeah. Entitlement, right?
What's that?
Entitlement. You know,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah. I did
Yeah.
everything right, but the last card just screwed me over, and it's not my
Right.
fault. But like, you don't have to
Right.
do that.
Right. But I'm talking about when it looks like you played the hand really badly.
Yeah.
But you didn't, but it's tempting to want to save face, to show them the straight, to show everybody, see, I got sucked out on, I
Yeah.
played it right. But, I'm just saying that I had one hand in particular like that at one point that I was able to muck it face down. That's why I remember it, because I wrote it down. Because I remember like this was like another milestone on my climb up the mountain. It was like I was able to let go of this. My pride didn't need to prove to them that I played it right or whatever.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're throughout your whole career, 30 plus and 50 plus years. Mostly you played table poker, which is live
Right,
poker,
live
casino
poker,
poker, and majority of Japanese players now, I think, playing table poker, and they like to go to casino, go abroad or anything. And I think you're the best person to ask what's do's and don'ts for the table poker, and I would like to
Yeah.
hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's two versions. There's home games and then there's public poker.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's remove the home game because it's kind of illegal.
public.
Yeah.
Right. So, it's kind of hard. Once you are, I'm pretending to talk to somebody who's never walked into a public poker room before. That's kind of hard. The main thing is, don't think of the opponents and the staff as your adversaries. You're all in it together to create a wholesome poker environment, right? So there's a certain level of decorum and respect that you should give to everyone all the time, no matter what they do, no matter what they say, for the sake of the game, for the sake of the room. Don't talk bad about the dealers or the house to other people. Don't talk bad about players to other people. Be decent, be good, be kind. All the values all the qualities that you value in a person that are good qualities. When everybody has that kind of attitude, you can compete just like in martial arts, right? You can compete with true respect.
Yep.
And joy almost, and honor, right? But you have to be that person. You have to be an honorable person and not go down to the level of squabbling and bickering that some people go to and try to just maintain a high state. That's sort of an overarching way of looking at live poker. The other one is, in terms of performance, is the three things you can control are exercise, diet, and sleep.
Yep.
You need to look at your body and your mind as a tool that you are using. And for that tool, whether it's a car or whatever, you got to maintain it and make sure it's running in good shape before you sit down. That's the most important thing in terms of optimizing your potential, because those are the three things that you can't absolutely control. And part of that scheme is taking a lot of breaks. Never go more than 2 hours without taking a real break. You got to keep rebuilding your energy.
Yeah, I think the lately people realize, especially online community, like it used to be back in 2010, you can just show up, play 20 tables, 10 hours grinding, eating pizza, Coca-Cola, and everything, right? And you can still make money. But nowadays you have to treat like an athlete. Actually,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's a great, I think, because the game itself, the edge got so small, and where can you
Yeah.
get the extra edge? It's that, right?
Oh, you're right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I mean, yeah, it's like athletics is a great example. The pro athletes, they're in such great shape. You know, they play 4 quarters of football and then they go into overtime and they're still sprinting up and down the field. It's like they got way more energy than they really need
Yeah.
to get to the end of the game,
Mhm.
right? And that's, you know, and you're right. Where else is the edge going to come from?
Those
You
small
know,
things, right?
stamina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the overarching theme, just be decent, right? And just
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
to respect
Yeah.
other
Be
people
good.
and also take care
Right.
of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And is there anything else, maybe like don't?
Not really that applies to all live poker.
Mhm.
You know, not really. Those are, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I'm going to add a little bit of mum poker. So mum poker is the
Okay.
one that you necessarily don't talk about anything regarding poker, but
Right.
as long as you know, where you come from, how old are you, or something like that, you
Right.
you make the conversation, make
Right.
the vibe going.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't particularly have this experience in my first hand, but what I saw in the internet forum that the
Mhm.
a lot of Japanese people, because of the poker boom,
Mhm.
they come in, let's say 4 or 5 groups of people, and sit on the table. Maybe because of the lack of the English skills, or maybe they just don't want to talk, or maybe they are like a lone wolf. They don't
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
They play super tight. Making a
Yeah.
game a little bit, not fun. And
Right.
don't quote me on this, but I think it was Jonathan Little or some other pro was saying that as a poker pro,
Mhm.
we do have an obligation to make sure that everyone has a good time,
Yeah.
especially recreational.
Yeah.
So I would like to know, like, how can you create that kind of environment
Uh-huh.
without, I guess, having a good English skill?
Yeah. Well, I was about to answer when you throw in the language barrier, that's a whole different thing. So mum poker, first of all, what you described is what I call mini mum,
Yep.
which is you'll engage, but not about poker, not about hands. Maxi mum is not talking at all, which I've played a lot of that. Here's the thing though, if you have a warm heart at the time, each of us, we kind of exist in one or two states a lot of times. We're sort of closed and you know, coldish, defensive, and sort of lost in our own head,
Mhm.
or we're open,
Yep.
like right now, you and I are open to each other,
Yep.
it's openness,
Yep.
right? You can be in that state of openness at the table without necessarily chatting it up with everybody, and people feel that. They feel it. So if these two guys, if one of them says something funny, you're alert to the situation and you smile
Mhm. Mhm.
naturally
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because you're open, right? And you can be part of the good mood of the table without necessarily going out of your way to instigate conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even if somebody is naturally quiet, they can still be part of the circle of camaraderie that's going on. But I will say though that the people that are unhappy about the games where everybody's on their cell phone and nobody's talking, too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you got two choices: quit or play.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not really anything you can do about it. It's like complaining about the rules. Yeah, you can write about it in forums, you can discuss it and maybe get the rule changed. But in that moment, at that time, it's just like, that's going to be the state of the game.
Yeah.
So now the challenge is, can you, meaning the people who don't like those games, can they find any kind of joy playing poker in that environment?
I see.
Anyway,
So how
that's
to
the challenge.
adapt to the environment, right?
Yeah. How to
Yeah.
adapt.
Yeah.
Because I've played in plenty of games like that in Vegas. Very quiet.
Yeah.
Half the people on their phones.
Mhm.
Some guys have little stands so you can watch movies, right? Here at Oaks, locally, it's not like that at all. Almost nobody's ever on their phone. Everybody's engaged and talking and involved most of the time,
Mhm.
old school, right? So those games are still out there, and I can see why people long for the past
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
everybody was engaged all the time.
I see. Yeah, I think the best thing that people should understand is going back to do's and don'ts, that it's camaraderie. You're the brotherhoodness. So it's not
Yeah,
lone wolf, right? You against
yeah,
whole world.
right.
That's the one thing that people understand. Then maybe they can start a little bit of opening up. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hard thing that, as you said, someone says something funny, you could laugh, but if you don't
Right.
understand what they're saying, right?
Well, that's another issue.
Yeah,
The English,
exactly.
that's a different challenge.
Yeah, so well, I guess that's something people should understand.
But
But yeah,
but yeah, you can look at people, you can smile, you can like I sit every time somebody sits down at the table on either side of me,
yeah,
I always look right at them and say hello.
yeah, 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 yeah. Same.
Every time,
Yep.
right? I mean, why not?
Yeah, it's
Right?
like well, again, going back to the martial arts. If you're in the dojo and someone else comes, just like welcome, hey, have
Yeah,
fun, hey.
yeah. And if you didn't have all those other poker players there, you'd have no game.
Yep,
That's what I was talking about before. We need each other.
yep. Dance partners, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, like, like because I like martial arts, and I'm the Brazilian
Uh,
Jiu-Jitsu blue belt too, and they
uh,
always say in the practice, don't break your toy, because if you're doing a like a sparring session and you go really hard, and if the opponent goes and you can't do anything about it, same things. If you're playing poker and if you like
yeah.
constantly attacking, oh, you're blah blah
Right.
blah,
Right.
there's no one's gonna play it with you.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I think this is the one of the most juicy part, and you particularly, I think that you're an expert about the advice to the aspiring pros, who someone wants to jump, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but like never be able to. So
Yeah.
if audience is watching, it's been 45 minutes now, so they already have the commitment and the engagement and the will to observe all the poker knowledge to become pro. What can
Uh-huh.
you give to those people?
Well, this is, I've made a few videos called Going Pro. They're
Yep.
at my website, which is tommyangelo.com, by the way. And written about it. And because of that, and talked about it in interviews, I get a fair number of clients who do come to me exactly with these questions. So I
Yep.
have coached a lot of guys on this, and every case is completely different, right? So for example, if you got somebody who's 25 and they hate their job and they have decent success at poker, but they don't really know if they really have what it takes
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to survive without a schedule, right? And they've got, 25 grand or access to it, and they hate their job. It's like, well, yeah, go for it. But then you might have somebody else over here who, married,
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
kids, different situation. It really depends on the situation. But there are some generalities, some general things, mistakes, I guess, misassumptions, wrong assumptions people make
Mm-hmm.
about bankroll need.
Okay.
Okay, this is one of the, because when you look at, okay, the standard formula is based on risk of ruin.
Yep.
Are you familiar with this?
Yep.
Okay, so let's say somebody makes 10 big blinds an hour or per 100 or whatever. You can calculate if you want a 5% risk of ruin,
Yep.
meaning if you run your life out 20 times, you're only going to go broke once. How much bankroll do you need playing X stakes with this X earn rate?
Yep.
So let's say you come up with a number, 30 buy-ins. Okay. Well, that's never going to be enough to go pro with for several reasons. One is, what if you lose half your bankroll? Now you have to drop. Now, in order to have 30 buy-ins, you got to drop down in stakes.
Yep.
And what if those low stakes aren't high enough to beat the rake and pay your rent, right? If you're already playing the lowest stakes possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other factors, if it's somebody's first time going pro, is they're going to definitely underestimate how badly they're going to play when they run bad,
Yeah.
when they run really bad,
Yeah.
like they've never run before. Okay. So let's say somebody who's used to playing 8 hours on the weekends, they have a run bad streak and it's spread out over a few months. A pro goes through that in 4 days of losing every pot
Yeah.
and losing half their bankroll, and they're depressed and they're eating bad and it's wintertime. So they've got seasonal affective disorder and their girlfriend left them. It's like, this is why you need 100 buy-ins. You need, so many buy-ins to have any sense of real security.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that's if somebody is doing it, really taking a shot to do it once and for all and never turn back. Meanwhile, it can be totally correct for somebody who's working their way up to that to quit their job with 15 grand. And let's say they work at a restaurant and they tell their boss, hey, I'm going to try to be a pro, but if that doesn't work, can I have my job back? And their boss says, all right. So they go and
Yeah.
they give it a shot and they last 3 months and it didn't work. But they learned so much during that period of essential stuff about themselves and everything else that was necessary. And they might go through that 5 times over the course of 5 years before the final time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the final time, I really believe when somebody's really trying to go for it, that they got to have that bankroll in place,
Yep.
even if it means borrowing it.
Okay.
The number I throw out there as the absolute minimum to
100
start
buying.
50 grand. I put a dollar amount.
A dollar. Okay.
Yeah, a
Okay.
dollar amount on it. In terms of, because that's the minimum I believe somebody needs in 2023. who's young and doesn't mind
50,000.
living cheaply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Minimum.
maybe after like election and a few years down, could be $100,000, right?
You mean after the
Inflation,
okay.
everything.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But the number is not, I'm throwing the number out there to kind of shock somebody who might be thinking they can just take 5 grand to go do this, that it just doesn't work that way. It's super hard.
Yep.
Once you've cut the cord, because the pressure, the stress, you can't anticipate what it's going to be like, so it's kind of funny. I'm constantly like, it sounds like I'm talking people out of it, but on the other hand, it's the greatest thing there is to have that kind of freedom, right? It's unbelievable. You can't even fathom how wonderful that is.
Yeah.
So,
I made a post on the X because a lot of Japanese poker players and YouTubers, they only shows wins, right? They only shows grumbling, the good part, freedom, money, and everything. But that is the one thing that people needs to understand. Like, when things go bad, and so bad that you want to quit, and you still show up, and they're gonna kick your teeth out, right?
Yeah.
And can you still go for it? That's the part.
Right.
Like, you have to understand what kind of mountain are you trying to climb, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's amazing that that someone like you who's been through, and you probably had the worst downswing ever, and it's like that. It's just I don't
brutal.
know, beyond imagination, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like so many things. It's like you just have to experience it. The only way to learn it is to do it, and just got to experience it. There's no other way around it.
Okay. But so the bankroll in 2024, at $50,000 in 2024, $50,000 US dollars. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just throwing that number out there. Now, the other thing I think is really, really important, is how you manage your, and I would recommend anybody really interested in this, go watch my videos called Going Pro. There's 3 of them. The first one is called Family, Friends, and Lovers.
Okay. Yeah.
How to handle, and so the video, I'm just going to spoil the punchline. It's called, but it's not gambling. So the idea is like trying to convince people that it's not gambling, that you're not out of your mind, that there are other people who make a living at this, and I'm going to try to do it too. And so there's friends and then family and relationship people. Okay. And what the some of the points are that you can't use logic to convince somebody about how sensible it is
Mm.
and even secure it is to try to play poker for a living if they have a completely different perspective about gambling, and maybe they know somebody
Yeah.
who's have a gambling problem, and for them they're afraid,
Yep.
they're scared,
Yep.
or they think it's crazy. No amount of words is going to convince them. Okay, it's not that much different than if you're talking like an evolutionist talking to a creationist,
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
or a hardcore conservative and liberal. Okay, the perspectives are so far that if you try to continue using logic and reasoning to get through, you're the one who's being kind of foolish,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What I believe is that, and this is kind of the punchline of the whole thing, the only way to prove that you can live a life of a happy professional is to do it. That's the only proof that they will accept. Okay. So it's really a matter of being honest and saying, look, I know you think I'm crazy, but I'm going to do this. And if I don't pull it off, it's going to be ugly. But if I pull it off, you're going to see that I was right all along. This is a viable life.
Maybe it's a good idea to have like a plan B to tell them if this doesn't
yeah,
work
yeah.
out, have plan B.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, having a plan B is definitely a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. But that will give them some sense of security, maybe. Okay. But they'll still think you're crazy. The only way they're ever going to be on board,
Yep.
like to where, years later, let's say when your parents are talking to somebody and they say, yeah, my son's a professional poker player. The only way that can ever happen is if you've already done it
Yep.
for years.
Yep.
And they can see that this is real.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link the those 3 videos because I think I've watched
Okay.
it. Yeah, and I remember that. Yeah, amazing,
Cool.
amazing. The videos too. So I have one question. So let's say you're trying to go for pro, and
Mhm.
you're not sure if you're gonna beat the game or not. You
Mm.
always want to know that you're kind of beating the game or semi break even, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and online you can play so much hands and like have such a large sample, but how can a table poker live poker players know that what kind of hourly or BB per 100 that you have before you actually
Yeah.
going pro like what
Well,
how many hours you have to play?
yeah. What's a good sample size? Okay. It kind of depends a little on how experienced you really are. Okay. So if somebody's actually become a really good player, the answer to your question is, if we wanted to put a number on it, if you're playing full time, 40 hours a week, that's 2,000 hours a year. I would say 1,000 hours is reasonable, but we're assuming that this person's going through a learning curve
Yeah, yeah.
at the same time of how to play live poker. So it'd be more like, train for a couple of years and then see, what your hourly is. But basically you keep records.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's all. You just write down your results. And if you hit a stretch of several months where you've got not just good winning going, here's the key part I wanted to get to, why I mentioned experience. Once you have enough experience, you just know if the game's profitable by how they're playing.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. That's why I've always said, if I had to go back to making a living playing poker, I would probably play limit hold'em, because you can size up the opponents like that, right? If a guy turns over queen 9 suited under the gun, playing 10-handed limit hold'em, I know he's a fish.
Yeah.
No pro is ever going to show me that hand, ever. Not even one time. If a guy turns over queen 9 suited under the gun at no limit, he might be the best player in the world for all I know.
Yeah.
I have no idea, right? So my point is, Bobby Hoff said, it's not about how good you play, it's about how bad they play. Okay?
Yeah.
If you have an A game that is good, and you're playing a bunch in a game that has like 3 or 4 bad players in it, like all the time, you will know, you will sense,
Yep.
I am making money here, independent of the results. You'll just know. Now, the results should line up. Okay. But the answer, basically answer your question is, yeah, you need a good 6 months to 1 year of consistent winning at live poker before you could feel like, okay, I am a winning player at this game. You know, it takes a pretty good sample. Now, here's the other catch is we assume this person's not playing 30, 40 hours a week. They're only playing 8 hours a week or 10 hours a week of live poker,
Yeah.
right? Because they still have a job and everything. And so at that pace, it takes a long time to accumulate 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
And here's the other catch of the whole thing. Remember, I already said you don't know how poorly you might do with no safety net. On the other hand, this is the good news. Very, very good news. When you're playing all the time, you can get better.
Yeah.
Because
Consistency.
you're playing so much. Well, that's what guys ask me all the time. Like, how much should I spend playing and how much should I spend studying? You know, I'm like, play.
Yeah.
You got to play 1 billion hours to get good at anything, right? You just got to play and play and play. And so the recreational who's looking to go pro at live, who's playing 10 hours on the weekend, one way to do it would be maybe to take $5,000 and take 2 weeks off from work and decide to live the life of a pro right now.
Yeah.
And play 5 straight days. Because I guarantee you at the 4th or 5th day, if they're not running bad and depressed, their skills will get sharper. And the reason the skills get sharper in that short a period is because your patience goes way up. If somebody's driving to play on the weekends and they're like, oh my God, I got to go at 2 o'clock, I'm stuck, they can't play good poker. But if you know you've got unlimited time to play, and this is the key point, as a pro, that helps you play better.
I see.
Way, way better.
I see.
Because you're not in such a hurry all the time.
There's less extra pressure on you, right? Less elements that
Yeah.
you have to take care of it, and
Yeah.
also the importance of consistency in playing all the time. And if you're playing little bit, and and throughout this interview, there's a lot of parts like game's gonna evolve, right? So maybe your game is not catching up to the everybody else.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
that's the thing about if you're only playing weekends, not putting a volume. Are you
Right.
catching up to the general
Yeah,
audience?
it's
So
hard.
yeah,
It's hard to grow.
Yeah.
So, to some extent, it's almost like you need to quit the job and start playing a lot to even, for some people, to even get good enough to pull it off.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a bootstrapping
Yeah.
element.
So
Yeah.
that's why
That's
it's
why, if you're thinking about it, if you're starting a business, right? You let's say you would go borrow a bunch of money, no big deal, right? So let's say somebody borrowed 80 grand. 50 of it was going to be their poker bankroll. 30 grand is going to be to pay their living expenses while they train at poker by playing 5 days a week. I mean, you could actually think of it that way,
yeah,
right?
treat that as your
Right.
personal business, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to go through training. You got to go through the learning curve.
Yeah.
But doing it 10 hours a weekend that's hard, man, emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
And knowing that, let's say you worked hard and throughout the week, and you just blew your whole entire week
yeah.
paycheck, right? Just
Brutal.
Yeah.
No, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's, they call it I don't know who said this way back when. It's a tough, some easy way to make a tough living or something like that. Being a professional poker player, right?
I see.
It's a tough way to make an easy living. That's what it was. Something like that. Yeah. But it is.
And as you said, there you need to training, you need a coaching, and I think the one of the thing is that you need to keep improving in seeking, whether it's a video training site or like someone like you, asking for coaching and mentoring, and throughout your career you taught a lot of students, and there's one particular student whose name is Phil Galfand, probably the best
Yep.
student you ever produced. And when I ask, do you have any stories? And you say you have one. So I like to hear his
I do
story.
have one. I do have one. Um, so yeah, I coached Phil we did the main coaching program, which I did back then, which was like a 4-day thing. That was in 2005. And then we did some other coaching over the next few years. And one of the things that we talked about, which I talk about with almost all my clients, is meditation. Okay. And I was introducing my clients to meditation all the way back when I started coaching in 2004, 2005, 2006. Back then, it wasn't quite as well accepted as in the culture as it is now.
Mm-hmm,
It was, a lot of people are a little like, oh, it's kind of weird. But I would introduce it to them anyway and demonstrate to them how they can use some of these techniques to help their poker game. So Phil was, on board with that, and he was going to do 10 minutes meditation every day, 10-minute sitting meditation. So then some months later, whatever, we had a session and he's like, yeah, been doing I haven't been doing the meditation, but it's in my mind. I want to do it, but I haven't been doing it. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So then a few months later, he writes to me and he says, well, I got an idea. He goes, I'm still not meditating, but I'm feeling bad about not meditating.
Mm.
But I know that right now I'm not going to do it. So he said, so wouldn't the correct emotional play be to just like take it off my list
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and not even have it hanging over my head as something I should be doing? And I was like, yeah. So I basically gave, Phil, even though I encourage every client to get on some kind of meditation path, I gave permission to Phil to like cancel the whole program.
Wow, interesting. And do you know if he's trying to get back to the meditation world, or he's just
I
no?
don't. We still maintain some contact. In
Yeah.
fact, my last trip to Vegas, we were going to get together. It didn't quite work out. He lives there now.
Oh, okay.
When I was going to the series every year, I would always visit certain people when I went down there, and he was one of them. But no, I'm not really up on his if he really got back into meditation. Although I do keep up with his material, his newsletter and some of his
Yeah,
videos.
I read that too. Yep.
And he seems like he's in a really good, calm place.
Yeah. I think because I don't personally know him, but I've seen him coming into the poker world, like seeing him play, and I think he, I don't want to use the word, but mature, like he became like he really found a peace, found the frequency that he's in, and it's amazing to see someone like him, going through this long and that nosebleed. It's just it's amazing.
Right.
And when I watched his YouTube channel, and he was actually talking about your weekends, first training, and he mentioned that Tommy, you didn't taught him everything he wanted to learn, but he taught me everything I needed to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And
that was a good line. I've used that line. It's something like, it wasn't what I expected, but it was just what I needed, or something like that. Yeah.
And interesting that he said that if he knew that what you're going to teach him, like he wouldn't accept it, right?
He wouldn't. Right.
Yeah. But like the lesson that you taught him was the best advice, and like everything he needed to go through his career. So that's the eye opening, because I don't know how many people are going to, click this and have a mind of certain expectation, right? Maybe, this, legendary, 50 plus years poker experience, this guy is gonna teach me some like flop c betting strategy or some like, things, and I'm gonna print my money. No, he's gonna teach you like experience and what actually needs. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's amazing. So,
and I look at it as like complementary and supplementary to all the other material, right?
Yep.
Some people teach this, some people teach that, and it's all out there. Yeah, good.
And I think it's the foundation. Like you really need a foundation, because the strategy part is, how you kind of punch or kick or something.
Right, right.
You need to
Oh,
have
yeah.
you need to have a cardio. You need to have a body and
The stance, like in
exactly.
martial arts, the stance.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just, I just love putting in martial arts to
But that is
focus.
the right analogy to it, right?
Yeah,
The stance, is that kind of equivalent of what you're talking about?
yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah,
Like
yeah,
even how you stand, how to see the distance management, everything, even before you
yeah.
strike. And
Right,
striking is a strategy part. So
right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, that's a good analogy. I
yeah.
like it.
So I like that too. But uh, if anybody wants to request your coaching, you're still accepting?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just go to my website, tommyangelo.com, click the coaching tab. You schedule and pay right there. It's all one-off calls, $150, 45 minutes. And yeah, it's real easy.
Cool.
You just tell me what you want to talk about and off we go.
And another thing that I think you're specializing those meditation part. And
Yeah.
there's a one thing that you wanted to talk about, that how to meditate while you're playing poker. Could you
Yeah.
tell me about that, please?
I would.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started doing daily Buddhist style sitting meditation in 2003. I've done at least a half hour every day since then, 20 years, and I read the teachings and I do all this practitioner stuff. I started meditating at the table way back then. And by that, I mean, I was a rookie at all of it, but doing some of the mindfulness practices, sitting up straight, doing mindful breathing, witnessing the in and out, listening to the sounds. Okay, and I've coached people on how to do various aspects of that over the years. And then just a few years ago, I wrote a new article called How to Meditate While You Play Poker. And that's basically what I wanted to draw people's attention to. So if you go to my website, tommyangelo.com, it's front and center at the top. It says new for you. And there it is, How to Meditate While You Play Poker. This article has a lot of nuggets in it that I believe will a lot of different types of people can see value in this. We'll be able to see some takeaways that they can do so that they can start using their poker time as double duty.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Where you're there to play poker, but you're going to use some of your energy on purpose, not the whole time, to do meditative practices, very specific things. And it's just a wonderful merge, because what do you do when you're meditating? You sit. What do you do when you play poker? You sit for a long time, right? You're just sitting there. Live poker, you fold, you got 90 seconds on average till the next hand. You can do anything you want with your mind and body during that time. All I'm suggesting is take some of that time and put it toward mental health, physical health, restoring your energy.
Yeah.
And the article is an instruction manual on how to do that.
Oh, that's amazing. So go to tommyangelo.com and you can find everything. And I think
Right at the top, how to meditate while you play poker. Yeah.
And it's amazing, like nowadays, and even like a Google Chrome, like you just click translate and you just, whoop. Yeah. So I'm sure that people can use that even if it's written in English. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. I was wondering, it's funny you should mention that. When I went to your site, I was wondering how well the translations are to the Chinese characters.
Oh, yeah. So these, I don't know.
I mean, you know what I mean? The Japanese, the characters.
Yes, yes.
There's a name for those. Anyway, go ahead.
A kanji, right?
Yeah. So how's the translation technology?
Well, I think it's gotten better. When I was doing a translating job back in 2011 to, when I was working for PokerStrategy.com, even when I use Google Translator, it just goes all over the place. And I never use a translator, and I translate it by myself. But nowadays, it's quite accurate.
Yeah.
Like even like a video too. Like I think this one, I will make sure that everything's correct. But if I click like a CC, it's probably gonna automatically translate by itself, and it's readable. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah.
Man.
And again, like those videos, the training sites, it used to be a paid, you have to pay to see the training, everything. But now it's like all the information is out there on YouTube, and
Right.
yeah, you
Oh, I
don't have to
know.
pay anything. It's amazing.
No. You
Yeah.
can learn anything on YouTube. It's just amazing. I mean, I literally learned that I'm not the first, how to make YouTube videos, watching YouTube videos.
Nah,
That's the
same.
best.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything you can learn. It's like a massive, gigantic like library, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
you can get so specific.
Yep.
Like, let's say you want to learn, the chord progression to the bridge of some song. You just type it in. There it is.
Yeah. Like even you can fix cars and anything. You just
Right,
yeah, yeah,
right.
it's amazing. And you mentioned one book when I asked if there anything recommendation. A book is called Mindfulness, Bliss, and Beyond: A Meditator's Handbook by Ajahn Brahm. Is that the book?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's a jolly. He's a Buddhist monk, Australian, with Australian accent. I've read a lot of books on meditation, but this one, in terms of instruction,
Okay.
it's like, what do you do, right? What do you do with your mind? What do you do with your body? What's the deal? And he just lays it out beautifully. It's one of the best instructions of how to meditate. So if anybody's interested in doing Buddhist style sitting meditation, that's a good resource. Yeah. And then another book that I read about a year ago that's had a huge impact on me a couple years ago, and the whole world, you might even heard of, is called Breath. B-R-E-T-H.
Yeah.
B-R-E-A-T-H by James Norton. It's just a huge book about breathing, and that basically, due to evolution and diet, soft foods and various things, humans, our whole shape, our front of our faces have shrunk and created constrictions in our breathing. And a lot of our breathing problems are reversible with exercises and things. Are you hip to this?
Oh, well, yeah. So I was about to mention that on the book, the Ajahn Brahm book, there was, I think, Jack Cornfield was, added something, and I read his
Right.
book too, the Buddhism for Beginners. I
Yeah.
listened to. So, and I don't know about the that specific book about breathing, but
Right.
yeah, how breathing can help you, like techniques and stuff. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
into that a little bit too.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Excellent.
that's amazing. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And we're reaching to the end of our interview, but I
Okay.
like to ask some of the interesting bullet points question that from Elements of Poker, which is the name that you created. Like two tones, monotones, hijack seats. Yeah, those stuff. Like, well, it's in the book, but like, can you elaborate like how that name came to your mind?
Well, hijack is So basically, this was not long after the term rainbow flop came out. Okay, so probably around 2002, 2003, and then I'm sorry, not rainbow, cutoff. The term cutoff.
Okay.
Okay, we're talking position. Okay.
Yes.
So that term was not that old. Okay. And I recognize, wow, here's a C, the button has the name, the button, right? You have the dealer button, and it's positionally powerful. So the cutoff got its name. I mean, it deserved a name because of its positional consequence. It's such an important seat.
Yeah.
Right. You raise from there, you drive the button out.
Yeah.
So it kind of made sense that the poker lexicon would naturally evolve a word for that. And then I realized as I started learning more about position and everything, that at that time, the wording was there's early position, middle position, late position. Okay. Well, I started thinking early position and middle position, they're kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing a 10-handed game, your opening hand shouldn't go down that much.
No. Yeah.
In middle. I always felt that the first seat that they should really go down is 2 from the button.
Yeah.
The hijack. Okay. And so I thought, well, that seat needs a name. It deserves a name. Okay. And as you read in Elements of Poker, I was literally writing a post at 2+2 as I did every day, right? I'd go play and go write posts.
Yeah.
And I'm writing along, and I tell about this hand where I had ace-9 or ace-10 or
Ace-9
whatever.
suited, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, in the cutoff.
Yeah.
playing limit hold'em,
Yeah.
right? And it comes around and the guy in front of me raises and I had to fold.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to call that the hijack seat because he just hijacked my button or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That's how it came. And I just wrote that one day as a whimsical post and it stuck.
Yeah, that's amazing, eh?
So that's how hijack, and now two-tone and monotone was when Rainbow flopped, when they came out with that word,
Okay.
I was like, that is great. Rainbow flop. Obviously, we need two other words because there's two other color combinations,
Yep.
let's say,
Yeah.
right? And so I worked on that for a long time. I tried all kinds of different things. And I was never that crazy about two-tone and monotone because they didn't go together with the word rainbow. They didn't have that kind of like cowboy flair of hijack, cut off and
Yeah,
hijack,
okay.
but they were highly descriptive, highly understandable, and needed,
Yes.
right? So all I did was just start. The very first instance that I ever used them was I actually made a CD of poker songs you've probably never heard about,
Whoa.
2000. And I wrote a song called The Slow Roller, and I used the word two-tone in there because it tells a story. It actually has a poker hand, right? So anyway, that's how I came up with two-tone or monotone. Was we needed them, the lexicon needed those words. They needed something.
Yeah.
So I wanted to come up with something, whether it stuck or not, who knows?
Yeah. Because most of the time, like you write on the post, right? Like a hand review and everything. You just write on the word. You don't know what's like if there's a flash possible, not possible. How many.
Well, that's what we used to say.
Yeah.
No, we literally would have to say the flop came 2, 3, 4, all clubs.
Okay.
Or 2, 3, 4, one suit. Or 2, 3, 4, flush draw possible. Literally, we had to write that out.
Wow.
Right?
But, yeah. Now you just shorten, and everybody uses it.
We'd say the shortest version was 2, 3, 4 with a flush draw.
Okay,
that was the shortest possible way to say it, and even that was just a tiny bit confusing if somebody didn't know the code.
Yeah. So I think it's amazing, even like positions, sure, like hijack, it's an amazing name that you created, but like in terms of poker evolution, like how it's useful, and I think two-tone monotones is like you got it,
useful. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's something, and I doubt people know that. Like most of the Japanese people, like I'm talking about, and even like entire generation of like a poker world, the people who started a few years ago or someone. You're the one. You're the one created.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, every word in the whole language was made up, right, by somebody at some point.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I want to know who came up with cutoff. Somebody did.
Yeah. Where did you see it at first?
I don't remember.
You just heard it or something?
It had to be at 2 + 2.
Okay.
But I don't remember it the way I remember Rainbow. I kind of remember the first time I saw Rainbow, I was like, wow. So cutoff, I don't know how old cutoff is. I really don't know definitively. But anyway, there's so many words in our language, like here's one, range.
Okay.
The word range did not start showing up in poker literature until 2007.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
Here's what we used to say. I put them on a flush draw. No, I've made fun of the new language sometimes in my articles I'd say like, here's the old way, and we would be able to say the same thing in like 2 words or whatever. And now it's like a whole bunch of words. But the word range did not exist in the poker lexicon as recently as 16 years ago.
Yeah. And all the concepts too, like nut advantage and range advantage, sure. Like, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Like, since the GTO, there's so many terms came up. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's where it's like science, new terms come up all the time because new shit happens all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's.
Oh yeah. With the onset of poker training sites was not one big explosion of words. And now with GTO, another whole explosion of words.
I see.
Yeah.
So, well, today is like January 3rd for you and January 4th for me. But like,
Yeah.
What's your 2024? What do you look like? You know, is there any
Yeah.
plan, project,
Yeah,
anything?
I'm pretty excited. This is not official yet. Are you okay? Jonathan Little's site is pokercoaching.com. You're familiar with that,
Yep.
right? I'm going to start writing for them.
Oh,
And I've already been working on these articles for like a year. I've got a whole bunch of them going. I just have to talk to Justin, Jonathan's guy, and who I've worked with before, because I did webinars there,
yeah.
like one a month. And now I'm going to do articles. And I'm super excited. That's what I've been working on in terms of writing projects, is writing articles again.
Okay.
But that, I do about 5 or 6 coaching calls a week, play poker on average 5 or 6 hours a week. I got a pretty good situation going.
Yeah, I think you're living in a dream for like an entire poker, professional, right? Like you are the one, you made it. Just it's amazing to see. Like and what about your YouTube channel? Are you going to post more YouTube channel?
No, I made videos for about 4 years, and that came to a natural winding down about a year or two ago. I knew when I made the Going Pro videos, I was probably going to stop for a while. Started with Lee Jones, the Poker Simple videos. Have you come across those?
Yeah. And
Okay,
8 of those,
are
right?
a
Yeah.
riot.
Yeah.
That's what really got me into making my own videos like that directly. And that was my full-blown writing project and creation project for like 4 years. But as of now, my YouTube channel's still there.
Yep.
All the stuff's there. But I don't plan to be making new videos. I'm back into writing
I see.
articles. So if somebody wants to read any of my stuff for free or watch it for free, they can go to my website, and there's tons of articles, tons of videos.
And also, I didn't know, and I don't know why I thought that, but you have your X account. And somehow I thought you don't use X, but you do. You kind of
Use what?
X account, Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
your X account is the Tommy Angelo.
Right.
Yes.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yes.
So I post once a day. I post some helpful saying or something funny or whatever. That's it. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. I didn't know it existed, so I just followed it and there you go. There's whimsical things, and Christmas time you're promoting your elements of poker and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's where people can follow.
Right. That's
you.
my only social media outlet.
Yeah. So, somehow I thought you just have a YouTube channel, but you do have an X account. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Tommy. Like this time,
Thanks
and all the knowledge and everything, and it depends on the audience. I'm sure that the people are gonna ask me to do like a second round or something. So maybe in the future, maybe we're gonna do one more time. But yeah, this was such an amazing time.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it and enjoyed meeting you.
Thank you very much. So maybe see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
See you. Bye.